Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around is my rant on the 2018 action horror film Corbin Nash, or as I like to call it, motherfucking trash, because this film is garbage. Now, I have seen worse films than Corbin Nash, but that's not saying much because when it comes to the worst movies that I've seen, the bar is incredibly low, and this film only barely gets above it. Because at the end of the day, there are just so many things about this movie that are smelly and reek of gutter trash. And it's just one of those films that really just exists as an exercise in both futility and nepotism. And what I mean by nepotism is the film is directed by Ben Jagger. It's also co-written by Ben Jagger and his brother, and it stars Ben Jagger's brother Dean as the lead Corbin Nash. It's also produced by the Jagger brothers. And I think the production company that made it was started by these guys. So this is one of those films that was intended to be a catapult for these brothers into stardom, and I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Because it's one thing to have a dream, and yes, it is somewhat admirable that they were able to get financing and they were able to get this movie made and even get stars like Rutger Hauer to have bit parts in it. But that being said, that doesn't mean much to me. Because at the end of the day, if the film sucks, who gives a shit? I mean, really. Oh, cool. You managed to make a movie. In today's day and age, pretty much everyone can make a movie now. It's not really that impressive that you actually went out and made a movie. There are more fledgling filmmakers now than there ever were in the past. So, you really need to stand out. You really need to prove and showcase that you have some genuine talent. And I don't think these brothers showed that with this film. And they're still clinging on to this hope that this is going to be a big deal because if you go to Ben Jagger's IMDb, he lists Corbin Nash 2 as being in pre-production. Buddy, give it up because nobody wants to see Corbin Nash 2. I mean, barely nobody to begin with even saw Corbin Nash. And you think that people want to see a sequel? But then again, we live in the day and age where everything has a sequel. I mean, there's what, 15 or 20 fucking witchcraft movies? So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Corbin Nash 2 actually did ultimately get made. Now, the film is directed by Ben Jagger, and his direction in the film is relatively jagged. It has some moments where the edges are smooth and some of the shots actually look competent. In particular, I think he handles a lot of lighting really well. A lot of the neon colors. It's definitely something that he really excels at when it comes to shadows and light. But anything else, he's way out of his league and woefully inept. When it comes to action sequences, he doesn't know how to shoot them in a way that really gets your adrenaline pumping or makes them exciting. A lot of the fights in this film are just boring and lethargic. And there's also a lot of sequences in this movie when it comes to the direction that just make you sick to your stomach. For instance, there's a lot of sequences in these shots of Corbin Nash fighting other people in a underground vampire fighting ring that are shot in a way that makes your head spin and makes you want to barf because the camera is just spinning around for no reason other than just Ben Jagger showing off. And it's like, dude, like you're not that good of a director. So this just looks like shit. And it makes your direction, which is already bad enough when it comes to the moments in a fight scene where the camera stays still even more despicable and even more aggravating to witness. And then you get down to the script by the Jagger brothers, and it says jagged as the direction is. I don't give a flying fuck about Corbin Nash. First off, the name is stupid. He's supposed to be a badass, and his name is Corbin Nash? Like, what the hell is that shit? You're just reminding me of hash browns or Nash Bridges. And I would rather be watching Nash Bridges and eating hash browns than watching fucking Corbin Nash. Because it is trash. This character is trash. He doesn't really have much of a personality. There's no reason to really like this guy or sympathize with him. Apparently, he's supposed to be some son of some vampire hunter, and you don't really get to see him fight any vampires until the last 15 minutes. The rest of the time, he's just spending the movie flat on his fucking ass, tied to a bed and recuperating from some injuries or some shit. And we're just waiting for him to turn into a vampire and heal his wounds. That's really all that's going on. Like, you have some flashbacks where he's not hurt, leading up to when he gets hurt. And then, of course, these other sequences where he's fighting in a fucking ring. But none of it really seems to amount to much. The script also does this really unorthodox way of showcasing the plot and showcasing how things unfold. And it does it in a way that's just incredibly fucking frustrating, because it ultimately winds up being confusing as hell. Because it just seems like they're just rearranging things in terms of the narrative just because. And not because they have a legitimate reason for it or a way to really make this unorthodox structure work. Because you have stuff where it starts out with him as a cop, and then it'll jump back and forth to him tied up into bed and recuperating, or him fighting in the vampire ring, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And then, even if it was in the right order, it's written in a way that's just so boring and dull, none of it really would have mattered in the first place. You got this other shit with the vampires, where your lead baddie is some vampire named Queenie, who is played by Corey Feldman as a transsexual vampire from transsexual Transylvania. And I don't really understand why this is like the main villain. I guess there's this other main villain that's on the side who rules this character, and you see him like once, but most of the time he's just in the shadows. So I guess he's not or she's not technically the main villain, but I don't really have a problem with having a transvestite vampire as the main villain. But it's just handled in a way where it just seems either exploitative or tasteless, because a lot of it is just this ripoff of Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. A lot of it is just moments where Corey Feldman's Queenie is just saying, "Do you think I'm beautiful? Do you love me?" And you're just like, what the fuck is this? I mean, what? I mean, you spend a lot of the time while you're watching these scenes expecting Corey Feldman to just break out in that Rod Stewart song, just start singing, "Do you think I'm sexy? Baby, won't you let me know?" It's just like, what is this? It hurts the villain because the villain's not intimidating, because it's written in a way where it just comes across as a joke. And then on top of that, you have his right hand or her right hand man. Sorry, I'm just used to it being Corey Feldman, so have some moments where my brain is kind of fucking up and not getting the right pronouns. So you have these moments where she is in the forefront, but then you also have her boyfriend, who's supposed to be another, I guess, attempt to be an intimidating presence, but he comes across as laughable too. Because he really just comes across as a simp. I mean, in the end of the movie, he simps so hard for Queenie that he gets distracted and gets stabbed in the back and dead in like 10 seconds. And speaking of that kind of shit, I mean, this film, like I said, you have all of this going on. You have this Corbin Nash character who's supposed to be this badass vampire hunter, and you're supposed to establish a new franchise, and he doesn't do anything in terms of fighting vampires until the last 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, can you imagine if if the Blade film was like that? Oh, it's just all this weird narrative flow that doesn't make a lot of sense and it's just all over the place. Laughable villains, and then Blade doesn't do anything in terms of fighting vampires until the last 15 minutes. You'd be like, this movie is fucking trash. And the characters, like I said earlier, there's nothing for you to really get invested in them. They're either boring or there are some that might have potential, but they are only there for one scene. For instance, Rutger Hauer's character, I honestly would have liked to have seen more of that character. Because he was a guy, a veteran of these wars with demons and vampires. And I'm like, why isn't Rutger Hauer the lead? Why don't we have like a wizened old veteran monster hunter played by Rutger Hauer? Why does it have to be fucking Dean Jagger, who's got all the personality and charisma of a fucking thumb? Why the fuck do we have to have this guy? He has all the acting ability of a wooden stake. So yeah, the characters do nothing for me. The plot does nothing for me because it's all about Corbin Nash and him building up the strength and healing up and fighting Queenie and her simp boyfriend. You've got Malcolm McDowell playing a blind prophet character who's just there to say a bunch of bullshit, literally. Because, like, in the beginning of the film, like he's saying, there's narration from Malcolm McDowell. It's the typical kind of shit that's just padding that a bad writer and a bad filmmaker will throw into a movie to make it seem like they're saying something deep, but really they're just fucking with you and wasting your time. So, yeah, the script sucks. And then you have the cast. I already mentioned Dean S. Jagger. He's fucking awful. The guy is a terrible actor. He really has no business being the lead in a movie. He gets blown off the screen when it comes to any moment where he's sharing the screen with somebody with a semblance of talent, especially some of the veteran actors. Like the one scene that he has with Rutger Hauer, like the man just doesn't stand a fucking chance. And even in sequences where he's sharing screen time with his partner, Chris Padral, who plays the character Frank Sullivan, or Fernanda Romero as Macy, this girl that he's falling for, who is a stripper that decides to help him out. Or even scenes with Corey Feldman. And you've also got Bruce Davison. Yeah, like he completely gets destroyed by Bruce Davison, who I think plays his father or his stepfather. Or then the moments with Malcolm McDowell, like I mean, what were you doing? Like honestly, at some points I feel bad for Dean because his brother is putting him out there and putting him in the forefront, and the guy can't even hack it. He can't even do the whole lead badass character thing even moderately well. I mean, the guy can't even keep his accent because apparently I think he's from the UK, and you can tell because there are moments where his supposed New York or Brooklyn accent just dies and fades away, and it turns into something that doesn't even sound like a Brooklyn accent or a New York accent because he's not from New York and he's not a good actor. And then when it comes to the technical elements, uh, should I mention Corey Feldman? Corey Feldman, I will give him this. He's trying here. He's having some fun with the role. I don't know if some fun is right because it seems like he's actually having a lot of fun with the role. More fun than I am having watching him play this character, but it does seem like he's having a lot of fun with it. And he has some undeniable charisma as an actor. And so in these scenes, despite the fact that they're really cringe inducing and embarrassing most of the time with him talking about, do you think I'm beautiful? Do you wanna fuck me? I'd fuck me. No, I mean, despite those sequences and the really bad lines of dialogue and all of this, I didn't mind his scenes, especially in comparison to any moment with Dean S. Jagger. Because Corey Feldman, he's not the greatest actor in the world, but he's got some genuine talent, unlike the lead. So I was able to somewhat enjoy some of his scenes in like a so bad it's good way. But I could not do that at all with Dean S. Jagger. And the rest of the cast, like Fernanda Romero, I thought was okay as Macy. I feel the same way about Chris Pardal. Malcolm McDowell's just collecting another paycheck as a blind prophet. Rutger Hauer, like, may he rest in peace. It sucks that this is one of the last films that he did before he died. Is this trash? Why wasn't he in better movies? Why wasn't he cast in films that were worth a shit? Why was he stuck getting roles for like one scene in films like Corbin Nash? Bruce Davison also is a much better actor who deserves a lot better than this garbage as well. And it's not like this film really delivers the goods when it comes to the horror stuff either, because nothing about this is remotely scary. A lot of the sequences with the vampires baring their teeth is honestly pretty hilarious, and I don't think it was intended to be that way. And on top of that, it's not really that gory or bloody of a movie. It doesn't have a very high body count. And for a movie that in a lot of ways is the White Blade, because it's very similar. You have this guy who gets turned into what is, I guess, a half vampire, half man hybrid, and goes on a killing spree and becomes a new vigilante vampire killer. In a lot of ways, it is Blade, but a really boring and bad version of Blade, featuring a guy that doesn't even remotely come close to even capturing a tiny sliver of the charisma and personality and talent of Wesley Snipes. But, I mean, this guy's so bad, Sticky Fingers from the Blade TV series blows him away in terms of charisma and overall talent. And that's pathetic. I would rather watch any episode of that show over Corbin Nash. And that's not a very good show either. But getting back to the whole point here, yeah, it doesn't really have that high of a body count, not really that bloody. Corbin Nash is not really that badass, even though he wins a lot of fights in these underground uh, matches. The way that he wins them is lame. A lot of it's just ground and pound or stuff that is not even remotely impressive or cool. And then even when he fights the vampires, he uses his bat that he turned into a stake and I think stabs one vampire with it, throws the bat and stabs one vampire in the chest. But I don't even think it is a vampire. I think it's just some normal guy who's guarding the vampire lair or some shit. So he stabs him with it against a door, but it looks dumb to be honest. It looks very stilted and off. And then he fights Queenie and makes really short work of her, grabs her by the throat and stabs her through the chest. And then the guy who is supposed to be the muscle, um Vince, played by Richard Wagner, like I said, he's just a fucking simp for Queenie, and he's talking about how I'm gonna get revenge. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna take him out. He's like angry yelling, and he's psyching himself up, and then he gets stabbed through the fucking chest by Corbin Nash. They don't even fight. So you have what a 30-second scuffle between Queenie and Corbin Nash in the climax, and then no fight at all between him and the simp boyfriend Vince. I'm not counting the little bits where he threw him around a few times earlier. That doesn't really count. I'm talking about like an actual final fight. Never happens. And Corbin Nash is supposed to be this badass who's a boxer. And I don't even think he even shows many sequences where he's boxing. Just a few wrestling moves, a few moments where he body slams a guy, punches him in the head. Like nothing that you see in this makes you think that this guy's an accomplished or skilled boxer, let alone a talented fighter. Like that has some potential, like a Blade ripoff with a martial artist or a boxer kicking vampire ass. It could be fun if it's handled correctly and you have the right lead and the right actor for the role. But when you don't have any of those things and you handle it so poorly, yeah, it's trash. And it's not good in terms of delivering what horror fans want either. It's just horrible. And when it comes to the technical elements, I mean, not really anything that great or special. I mean, I guess they were just average. Cinematography by Luke Hanlon, or the editing by Matt Michael. The music by Russell Irwin really didn't do a lot for me. A lot of attempts at trying to be synth and retro wave, and just didn't really fit the film for the most part. Or when it was there, it just didn't really impress me. And the film's like 96 minutes, but it feels like 196 because you're either left confused by the way the narrative is unfolding, or you don't give a flying fuck about what's happening, or you're just annoyed by a lot of things about the movie. So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the film, except it's motherfucking trash, and I really don't want to talk about it anymore. It's already giving me a bout of fucking eye twitches. So I should probably stop talking about it before my head explodes out my ass. So thanks for watching my rant on Corbin Nash. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.